But let's just jump to the first big news story, and then we'll just roll with it. It's very simple. From The Hill. Supreme Court asked to declare the all-male military draft unconstitutional. The ACLU issued a new petition saying women should be required to register for enlistment as well. They say a new petition issued by the ACLU has made it to the Supreme Court and aims to declare the historic male-only military draft unconstitutional, noting that the U.S. Department of Defense lifted the ban on women serving in combat in 2013. The petition specifies that the obligation for men to register upon turning 18 years old has yet to be applied to women. Quote, thousands of women have since served with distinction in combat positions across all branches of the military. The formal petition reads, the registration requirement has no legitimate purpose and cannot withstand the exacting scrutiny of sex-based laws that sex-based laws require. Rooted in this argument is the 1981 case Rotzker v. Goldberg, which argued that because American men are required to register under the U.S. law and women are not, the male-only draft is discriminatory and unconstitutional. The act gives U.S. presidents the power to require mandatory conscription of eligible adult males into the U.S. Army, but excludes women. Ultimately, the court held that the act does not violate equal protection clauses under the Fifth Amendment, and that the government is allowed to develop an army in times of national emergency. Now the petition asks the Supreme Court to overrule Rotzker v. Goldberg, since women are formally allowed to register for military service and in combat roles. And just as an aside, I don't want to derail from this story, we have the Equality Act being passed by the House, which would add sex to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So as far as I'm concerned, ladies, start lining up and registering for the selective service because y'all are going to be drafted.
I have a question. I didn't realize that there was still a draft. I realized that when I was the age for the draft, I was obese and wouldn't have qualified. I also have flat feet. But did you guys all register for the draft?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Well, you're what, 41?
Didn't you have to if you go to college? So like you have to apply for
That's you
selective
registered
services?
to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when
Yeah.
you were doing, when you would go to the DMV, they'd give you forms. It would be like, I sign up for the selective service. And then
I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. Now, they say that the all volunteer force is more effective. And I think that's true. Like the data shows you get a bunch of people who don't want to be there, who are scared and forced into it. You get a really ineffective fighting force. I think that's what they learned from Vietnam. So my bigger question with all of this is I know there's a lot of guys who are probably laughing and cheering. Like, yeah, finally. Because we've seen this before. There was another attempt at making this happen, and feminists were outraged. They were like, this is not what I wanted when I said I wanted equality. I do not want to have to go to war and fight in combat or anything like that. And it's like, well, that's what equality means. But I guess there's a libertarian question in all this. Should there be a draft? I mean, I'm sure. Look, like I said, there's people like guys who are like, haha, now you have to sign up for the draft. I'm kind of like, nah, I don't know if anybody should have to do that, right?
Well, if you look at what wars we're fighting, they're not really wars promoting freedom. They're not really wars fighting any kind of threat. And I think Henry Kissinger, he has this famous quote. He said, quote, military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in American foreign policy.
Guy, I swear.
What? Really?
Yeah, Henry Kissinger said that. I confronted him on it face-to-face, one-on-one. He didn't like that question. But now we need an official correction for Mr. Kissinger. He needs to state specifically that military men and women are now just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns for foreign policy. So we need an official correction. I hope the mainstream media pressures Mr. Henry Kissinger to offer this correction. I'm being facetious, obviously, here. But I mean, obviously, I'm against the draft. I mean, I think it's a ridiculous idea. You look at the wars that have been started. All of them are based on false pretenses. All of them are based on benefiting the military-industrial complex that is now getting their lunch with the Biden presidency, especially with the latest attacks that happened tonight. But also even before that, when you look at Raytheon, for an example, which, by the way, a board member is now our defense secretary of Raytheon.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, it's very. What did they call it in the media when they described him? He was a person of color, and that was great. His history,
diversity.
Yeah, it was they talked about diversity, but not his Raytheon past. And now you look at what the Biden administration is doing with Raytheon. Raytheon just got an $85 million weapons deal with Chile, $197 million weapons deal in Egypt, $245 million weapons deal with the United States, and another $1.2 billion weapons deal with U.S. missile defense systems. That's what Raytheon just got under a Biden presidency.
But wait, you said missile defense systems?
Upgrading and working on the military
but
defense system.
Will there be women forced through conscription to be manning those? That's the big
Well,
question.
right now there was I remember just a few years ago there was a crisis with trying to enlist people in the military, but now with how robotic everything is becoming, especially with the onset of things like drone warfare, the United States military doesn't need as many people, and with the recent economic downturn, more people are volunteering. So right now the United States does not need to use the draft, but if there was a bigger conflict, let's just say with Russia, which of course the United States is positioning itself with, especially with tonight's actions bombing a Syrian facility that's used by the Iranian-backed rebels, you have to wonder that this is something that might play a big role in the future.
I wonder if one of the reasons we're seeing this, it's not the first time it's happened. In the past few years, there have been attempts to get women into combat roles and to sign up for, it's not the draft specifically, it's the selective service. I think it's called, is that what it's called? Selective service.
Yeah.
And that it's essentially the draft database that in the event they have to reinstate the draft, they got everybody's info. But we've been talking about war with China for quite a bit. I mean, the threat in the South China Sea and the threat to Taiwan. I'm not entirely convinced Biden's going to go against China in that capacity, but maybe. The U.S. has currently got, I think, some aircraft carriers in the South China Sea. Could be remnants from the Trump administration. But we seem to be pretty close to war. I think, was it Vladimir Putin who said that we're in a period that's kind of like pre-World War II? You know, then we're looking, we see things like that. We see the money supply. Ethan, have you seen this stuff with the money supply skyrocketing?
Yes.
Just like printing money like crazy. So I wonder if they're basically saying we need to start preparing and putting together this database in the event that we got to go fight some people. You know,
I'm really anti-war and really, really dislike the draft. I would have been, if I was Vietnam, one of those guys that fled to Canada probably because I didn't want to go.
What's wrong with Mexico, Ian?
You're not that old, Ian.
Stuffed in a tube, go crawl through tunnels with a pistol looking for dudes with AKs waiting for me. Like, no, but
you sure you want to open a refrigerator for repairman or something?
Yeah, I don't want to get inside of a refrigerator for a repairman. Is that what you just said?
I said, what? I said something like,
okay.
Wouldn't you have been a refrigerator repairman?
Yeah, it would have been something like that in the Army. You mean? I get it. But then they would send those guys into the jungle. You'd be like, I'm an engineer. Yeah, you're an engineer on the front line. It was terrible. But I see a value to the draft in that if we were invaded, you got to get people, you got to get them armed and get them in, and you're not waiting, hoping that they'll come to the defense of the country.
I'm like,
if we get invaded, but we don't get invaded.
Yeah,
we never have been invaded.
Yeah, geopolitically, the United States is at a very, very big advantage compared to a lot of other countries where it's located. So we're in a very safe position, as well as many gun owners that, of course, also add another big national defense. And there was a meme showing all the crazy people that lived all over the United States, and it was a meme saying this is why the United States never gets invaded. South Los Angeles, it was Koreans.
Yeah, that's right.
And then other than that, it was Vatos, and then it was gang members in Chicago. It was Florida man in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Hicks in Texas. I forgot exactly all the other representation of America,
Dude,
but
the Chicago police can't even take over Chicago. Yeah. For real. Like
America will never be invaded. Fifth generational warfare is the only way to really take over the United States, and I believe that's personally happening right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. There was a really funny tweet I saw earlier where it was I think the website was the Gray Zone, which is like anti-war leftist, and they tweeted information war is real, and Twitter added a label, this information may have been obtained through hacking. And then it's like Twitter literally proved the point that we try and call out these big military firms and the manipulation and the propaganda. Twitter itself is like, this is propaganda, ignore this, there's nothing to see here. So yeah, you know what, like I brought up, China and potential for war. I think you'll just see skirmishing, skirmishes, some little hot, back and forth, maybe like Hong Kong. If China goes for Taiwan, it's not going to be, well, it might be. I'm not entirely sure, but I think you're right in that, Luke, we've been talking about fifth generational warfare. Are you familiar with what?
No, I don't know what fifth generational warfare means.
Basically, we're past the point where violence is effective in allowing someone to gain control of a population. And what we're seeing from that is, like with the culture war in the U.S., victimhood is power. So if you victimize someone, you lose legitimacy. So what we're seeing now, manipulation, propaganda. Convince populations to join you through information, manipulation, big tech companies, etc. it's going to be way more effective than, physically punching somebody.
Right.
And also push self-destructive tendencies, and also push things
Right.
that ultimately destroy a nation through destroying their youth. And if you look at our youth, I mean, I did a video about this today, record high suicides, especially in places where there's the most strictest lockdowns. And there's even court cases of major people arguing we need to bring back the schools because kids are going to keep killing themselves in record numbers like they already are. Which is absolutely
the
crazy.
lockdown stuff's getting real bad.
I mean, how would you rank Americans? I mean, I think you're our age. Throughout the years, I think it's safe to say that things haven't been going that well for the American people.
I think I'm a little older than you guys, but
How old are you?
44.
Well, you're a little bit older than Ian,
41.
but you're 10 years older than me.
Yeah, there you go. Thank God. I thought you were going to say, no, we're the same age. and I was going to be shocked. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think that all of the things that we think of as having power in America are all just ideas. And so if these structures, I think that the way to dissolve them isn't through war and violence. For real, it is just to convince people.
That's exactly what fifth generational war is.
Yeah, but I think like if you look at how the USSR kind of dissolved, and it got really rough immediately following the dissolution of the USSR, and there was a lot of scary stuff happening over there.
Yeah.
But people just went like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. It was a loss of confidence.
Right.
I'm worried about that for here in the U.S. If people stop believing in the legitimacy of government or of institutions, it's not about whether or not they oppose them. Opposition is not the opposition is not the opposite of confidence. Indifference would be. So if you've got people who are looking to the U.S. government and they're saying, I believe in this government, in that it's strong and capable, and you must abide by its laws.
And honest. That's a big thing, too.
And well, if people view it as not honest and they come to oppose it, the opposition is still rooted in the idea that the government holds power and is legitimate. But let's say there's a system that people find they're indifferent to, so they outright ignore. That's when government actually collapses.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of people losing confidence in the system because of all the dishonesty. There was a great article, I forgot who wrote it, I forgot where I read it, but it said the reason we have things like theories about government. Can we even say that word?
The C word.
Yeah, can we even say the C word?
I don't know.
What's the C word?
Well, we want to be
Conspiracy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
So-
YouTube downranks like severely anybody who talks. Yeah, it's so.
I was trying to think of another word for it. I threw it to you because you're great at that. I was like, but when you look at a lot of the conspiracy theories, they're kind of rooted in a lot of the bigger government lies, and there wouldn't be as many of them if the government was just honest with us. And let's be honest, they're not honest with us in so many instances, in so many different ways, whether it's war, whether it's health, whether it's diet, whether it's the food chain, whether it's big industries like the sugar industry. We have a lot of problems with mainline institutions that profit off of our suffering. And talking along the lines of fifth generational warfare, I think it's very fair to say that a lot of people have been convinced to make very bad decisions for themselves. And I think that's an understatement when you look at our modern day society and where it's heading right now.
Well, let's play devil's advocate and say, when talking about the draft and specifically, refresh me on what your point was, because I want to make sure I get it correct.
Well, the larger point is people are making really bad decisions for themselves, and they're hurting themselves for the benefit of the very few that have no allegiance to the United States.
So just like playing devil's advocate, if we did end up collapsing and people did lose confidence, Ethan, you mentioned things got really bad post-Soviet Union, the oligarchs came. Isn't there a benefit to having, even if it's bad? And again, playing devil's advocate here because I'm not a big fan of big government, but what are the benefits to having a system in place that may be oppressive but still functions? There's safety and security.
But by the way, it got bad there. It doesn't have to get bad here. I think there's a weird thing that happens in America with the medium, with government and stuff like that. The blue and black and white and gold dress. Do you remember this?
Right.
And then Laurel Yanni, how people can actively experience objective reality differently. Now, when my kids first showed me this and said, what color do you see? And I said, well, that's clear. I don't remember I think I said it's a white and gold dress, whatever it was. And my kid said, no, it's these colors. I thought, you're messing with me. This is clearly, objectively not the colors you're saying it is. And they insisted, and then it turns out lots of people saw it differently. There's no room in political discourse or just culture for us to go, that person is experiencing this differently than I am.
Right.
I really try to think about like people arguing in line at a Baskin Robbins over ice cream flavors. And at the end of the day, I'm going like, what difference does it make? Why are we allowing this to ruin our lives, and why are we obsessing on it?
Everybody likes a different flavor.
Right.
I did a tweet where I said we really need to re-engage Scienceology and go deep into it, rip it apart, and come back. And I was talking about the science of science. Like, and so many people thought I said Scientology. They were responding as if I'd said Scientology, and they were angry. And it's just like misperception. And that's not even the blue gold thing where you're actually literally seeing, they actually saw something different.
Right. I do want to bring up though, when you mentioned the blue and gold thing, one of the biggest drivers of that was people had different phones with different color schemes, and with the Laurel and Yanny thing, people had different speakers. So what was really happening?
But I could sit with my friends.
Oh no, for sure.
And listen to it, and somebody's going, no, I hear Yanni.
There's a really amazing thing someone did where they took both the blue and gold and the white and gold and the blue and the black, and they cut a piece out and they moved it left and right to show you it was the same.
Wow.
Or but it was based on shadowing, like shading it was like, that really looks like, that's crazy how that works. And then there's another thing that's really funny. There's a meme where it was, I think, 7 different phrases, but it was one soundbite. And so whichever one phrase you read, you would hear. That's really freaky.
Wow.
I can't remember what it was. I think it was like iPhone for us. And then it was like a whole bunch of different phrases.
And you hear it differently.
If you look at the word and you read it and listen, you'll hear that.
Right.
There was another crazy experiment I saw where they had people say fa, ba, and va. And then they would play like someone saying ba, but show the F sound, and people would hear the F sound. Because they're seeing, like, people don't realize how much their worldview is like not perfect.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point that a lot of what's going on politically is that, like, actually, have you ever seen this meme where there's a 6 on the ground, or it's a 9, but there's 2 people on both sides looking at it saying 6 or 9?
Yeah.
That's like a good example of what we're experiencing right now, and it's causing people to like want to punch each other in the face.
Yeah, I also get a little hung up with the idea of should. When we think about all of this stuff, and I hear people saying this is how it should be, I kind of go like, well, that's how you want it to be. Really, what does should mean? You know, even when we're talking about science doesn't have values. People add values to science.
Right.
So anytime somebody is saying something should be a way, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe you and a bunch of people don't want it to be that way, or you and a bunch of people do want it to be that way. And I think it's really interesting to listen to people who say, here's this problem that I perceive, and here's a solution that I'd like to try and enact. But, like, that's a rational conversation.
But you know that meme where it's like the guy goes, I'm angry, and he says, here's a solution. He's like, I'm mad. Here's a solution. I don't want a solution. I want to be mad, and he's burning it.
Yeah, that's fair, too.
You sound like a very, what do the leftists insult? They say radical centrist.
Yeah.
That you're like, hey, maybe everybody has like a different understanding of things. No, you're either in our tribe or you're bad.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I also don't think I don't think everybody should be forced to adhere to the same structures. So if people want to be communists, I'm all for it. I just don't think I should have to be forced to be a communist.
That's why I like the sweater. I thought it was the anarchist symbol, but it's your podcast.
Right, it's just a podcast.
That's why I liked it. I'm like, yeah. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.